The moment Marcus Chen snatched the bride's bouquet from the air, time seemed to stop. I watched from my seat near the stage as he landed gracefully, a triumphant grin on his face. The crowd erupted in cheers, expecting what everyone at this wedding anticipated, that he would turn around and hand those white roses to me, his girlfriend of 5 years. Instead, Marcus walked past the bride, past the giggling bridesmaids, and stopped in front of Sophia Leigh. The silence that followed was deafening. Sophia, his college sweetheart who had just returned from abroad 6 months ago, looked up at him with those wide, innocent eyes I'd grown to despise. Marcus extended the bouquet toward her, his expression soft in a way I hadn't seen in years. "For old time's sake," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Whispers erupted around me like wildfire. Did Marcus just give the bouquet to Sophia? But isn't he with Natalie? Keep your voice down. Who knows what's going on between them? I sat perfectly still, my champagne glass frozen halfway to my lips. The friends on stage shifted uncomfortably, shooting sympathetic glances in my direction. But I simply raised an eyebrow, feeling an odd sense of calm wash over me. I wasn't surprised. Not anymore. The woman beside me, my colleague from work, leaned closer. "Natalie, are you okay? What is Marcus doing?" Before I could respond, Marcus himself addressed the murmuring crowd. His voice carried that familiar confidence, that unshakable belief that he was always in the right. "I'm just giving an old classmate some blessings." "What's wrong with that?" His eyes scanned the room, daring anyone to challenge him. When his gaze met mine, there was a flicker of something, defiance perhaps, or expectation that I would cause a scene. I smiled. Then I set down my glass and began to clap. Slowly, deliberately, my applause cut through the tension like a knife through silk. "Well said," I announced, my voice clear and steady. "In fact, why stop there? How about I book the venue next door and host a separate wedding for you too? I know a great wedding planner. I could recommend her." Every head in the room swiveled toward me. The bride's mother looked horrified. The groom choked on his drink. Marcus's face cycled through confusion, anger, and then back to confusion again. "Natalie, what the hell are you playing at?" I tilted my head, genuinely bewildered by his question. "We've broken up, Marcus. You can give the bouquet to whoever you want. I'm just trying to be helpful." The groom, my friend's new husband, rushed over and placed a comforting hand on my arm. "Natalie, don't be upset. We still have the lucky money toss later. The bouquet isn't that important." "I'm not upset," I said, genuinely confused by his concern. I looked around at all the pitying faces and almost laughed. "We really have broken up. He can give flowers to anyone he likes." Marcus strode toward me, his jaw tight. "Natalie Jong, what game are you playing? We haven't broken up. When did this happen?" I stared at him, this man I'd given 5 years of my life to, this man I'd saved from bankruptcy, this man who had been secretly meeting with his first love behind my back, and felt nothing but a strange hollow calm. "You really don't know, do you?" I murmured. Sophia appeared at Marcus's elbow, still clutching the bouquet like a prop in a bad play. Her voice trembled with manufactured concern. "Natalie, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to cause any trouble. Maybe I shouldn't have taken the flowers." I held up my hand, silencing her mid-sentence. "Please. Save the performance." Marcus's face reddened. "I was just giving a normal social blessing. Why are you making such a fuss? My friend is getting married today, can you not be so petty for once?" "Petty?" I repeated the word, tasting its irony on my tongue. "Marcus, do you even hear yourself?" But I knew he didn't. He never did. For 5 years I'd loved Marcus Chen. I'd met him in college, where he and Sophia had been the golden couple, the kind of pair that dominated the campus confession wall, that made everyone around them feel like extras in their romantic movie. I'd been one of those extras once, watching them from afar and thinking how lucky they were. Then Sophia went abroad. Marcus's family business collapsed. And I became his lifeline. Natalie, please, he'd begged 5 years ago, standing at my doorstep with desperation in his eyes. No one else can help me. I don't want my family to lose everything. Please, Natalie. He'd nearly kneeled. I'd stopped him, taken money from my family, and pulled his sinking ship back to shore. In return, he'd been grateful. Kind, even. And when he asked me to be his girlfriend, I'd said yes, believing that gratitude could grow into something more. Now, looking at him across this crowded wedding hall, I realized it never had. Marcus, I said quietly so only he could hear, I know about your secret account. I've seen the posts. Choosing between my first love and my financially supportive girlfriend. Very artistic title, by the way. Very creative. His face went pale. You checked my phone. I didn't have to. You left yourself logged in on my computer. Behind him, Sophia's expression flickered, just for a moment, with something that looked almost like fear. Then the mask of innocence slid back into place. Natalie, please don't blame Marcus, she whispered, reaching for his arm. It's my fault for coming back. I should have stayed abroad. I never meant to cause problems between you two. I laughed, a genuine laugh that surprised even me. Sophia, please. You're not the problem. You're just the symptom. The bride appeared beside me, her beautiful white dress swishing against the floor. Natalie, whatever's happening, can we talk about this later? My wedding photos are going to be filled with people arguing. I squeezed her hand apologetically. I'm sorry, Mai. This isn't your fault. I turned back to Marcus, my voice carrying clearly through the now quiet room. Marcus, when you get home tonight, pack your things. You're moving out. And effective immediately, you're resigning from the company. I'll have HR process the paperwork tomorrow. You can't be serious. Marcus's voice cracked. Natalie, you're overreacting. Nothing happened with Sophia. Nothing happened. I repeated. The sunrise photos at the beach? The crab ramen you ran across town to buy her? The night you spent at her apartment? I shook my head slowly. I'm not overreacting, Marcus. I'm finally reacting appropriately. Sophia's face had lost some of its color. Natalie, I swear Marcus and I are just friends. Sophia. I cut her off again, my voice flat. I genuinely don't care what you are. Keep the flowers. Keep him. You've earned each other. I grabbed my clutch from the seat and walked toward the exit, my heels clicking against the polished floor with satisfying precision. Behind me, I heard Marcus's voice rise in anger, Sophia's in tearful protest, and the confused murmur of guests who had just witnessed the most dramatic moment of their social season. At the door, I paused and looked back. Marcus stood frozen in the center of the room, his expression a mixture of fury and disbelief. Sophia clung to his arm, still playing her role. Our eyes met across the space, and I saw something I'd never seen in his gaze before: uncertainty. I smiled one last time, then stepped through the doors into the cool evening air. The relief that washed over me was so profound, so unexpected, that I had to lean against the building's exterior wall for a moment to catch my breath. For 5 years, I'd been waiting for Marcus to choose me. For 5 years, I'd made excuses for his distance, his forgetfulness, his occasional cruelty. The secret account had shattered my illusions. The sunrise photos had confirmed my fears. But standing here now, having finally spoken the truth aloud, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Free. My phone buzzed. A text from Mai. Are you okay? I'm so sorry about all this. I typed back quickly. I'm better than I've been in years. Congratulations on your wedding. I'll call you tomorrow. Another buzz. This time from Marcus. We need to talk. You're being unreasonable. I blocked his number without a second thought. The drive home took 20 minutes. 20 minutes of silence, of processing, of slowly accepting that the life I'd built with Marcus was over. When I pulled into my parking space and walked up to the apartment we'd shared for 3 years, I expected to feel sad. Instead, I felt purposeful. I walked to the bedroom and pulled out the largest suitcase I owned. Methodically, I began packing Marcus's things, his designer suits, his collection of watches, the expensive shoes I'd bought for his birthdays. Everything went into the suitcase, then into a second, then a third. By midnight, I had 6 suitcases lined up by the door and a garbage bag filled with the small items he'd accumulated: cologne bottles, desk accessories, the framed photo of us at the beach 2 years ago. I paused at that one, studying our smiling faces. I'd been so happy then. So certain that the man beside me loved me as much as I loved him. The photo went into the garbage bag. I was just finishing when I heard keys in the lock. Marcus stumbled through the door, clearly drunk, and stared at the mountain of luggage with bleary confusion. "What's all this?" he slurred. "You going somewhere?" "No, Marcus." "You are." He laughed, an ugly, dismissive sound. "Come on, Natalie. Don't be like this. You know Sophia doesn't mean anything to me. She's part of my past. And I'm part of your present," I said calmly. "A present you've been trying to return since she came back." He swayed on his feet, grabbing the doorframe for support. "That's not true. I love you, Natalie. I've been with you for 5 years. 5 years," I repeated. "And in all that time, have you ever once chosen me first? When she called during our dates, you left. When she needed help, you ran. When she came back to the country, you spent more time with her in 6 months than you've spent with me in the past year." Marcus opened his mouth to argue, but I held up my hand. "I don't want to fight. I don't want explanations or excuses. I just want you to take your things and go." He stared at me for a long moment, something shifting in his drunken gaze. "You're serious?" "Completely. Where am I supposed to go at midnight?" "That's not my problem." I gestured to the suitcases. "But if you don't take them now, I'll leave them on the curb for garbage collection tomorrow." For a moment I thought he might argue. Then something in his expression hardened, and he grabbed the handle of the nearest suitcase. "Fine. If this is what you want." "It is." He dragged the first suitcase toward the door, then paused. "Natalie, what about the company? You can't just fire me. I'm a shareholder." I smiled. "Marcus, who gave you those shares? Who funded your position on the board?" I watched understanding dawn slowly on his face. "Those shares are mine. They were always mine. You were just managing them. You can't take them back. You gave them to me. I'm a businesswoman, Marcus. Even when I love a man, I don't gamble with my investments." I picked up his keys from the counter and tossed them onto the suitcase. "I've already spoken to my lawyer. The share transfer will be complete by morning. You're done." The color drained from his face. For the first time that night, he looked truly scared. "Natalie, please. Let's talk about this in the morning when we're both calm." "I'm perfectly calm, Marcus. Calmer than I've been in months." I opened the door wider. "Good night." He stood there, caught between anger and desperation, until finally he grabbed another suitcase and stumbled into the hallway. I watched him make 3 trips to his car, loading his life into the trunk piece by piece, and felt nothing. When the last suitcase disappeared, I closed the door, locked it, and leaned against the wood. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I smiled. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. For a moment, as sunlight streamed through the curtains, I forgot what had happened. I rolled over, expecting to see Marcus's sleeping form beside me. The empty space on the mattress brought everything rushing back. I lay still for a moment, waiting for the grief to hit. Instead, I felt lighter than I had in years. The absence of his presence in the apartment was noticeable, yes, but it wasn't painful. It was peaceful. I made coffee, sat on the balcony, and watched the city wake up. My phone buzzed with messages, friends checking in, colleagues asking if I was okay, a few from numbers I didn't recognize. I ignored all of them. At 8:30, I dressed in my best power suit, applied my makeup with care, and drove to the office. The company building rose before me, 15 stories of glass and steel that I'd helped build from the ground up. When I'd started this business 6 years ago, fresh out of university with a loan from my family and a fire in my belly, I'd never imagined it would grow this large. I'd certainly never imagined I'd hand its management over to a man who would betray me. The receptionist looked up as I walked in, her eyes widening. "Ms. Zhong, I didn't expect to see you today." "Good morning, Lily." I smiled warmly. "Is Marcus in?" She hesitated, glancing toward the elevators. He's in a morning meeting, Ms. Zhong." "Perfect." I took the elevator to the 15th floor, my heels clicking against the marble tiles with each step. Outside the main conference room, I paused, straightened my jacket, and pushed open the doors without knocking. Every head at the long table turned toward me. Marcus sat at the head of the table, my chair, the one I'd let him occupy when I stepped back from daily operations. Beside him, looking sleek and professional in a fitted blazer, sat Sophia Leahy. Assistant, according to the nameplate in front of her. I raised an eyebrow. Of course he'd hired her. "Ms. Zhong." One of the senior directors rose immediately. "We weren't expecting you. Please take my seat." I waved off his offer and walked to the head of the table, stopping directly in front of Marcus. "You're in my chair." His jaw tightened. "Natalie, we're in the middle of a meeting. Can this wait?" "No, it can't." I looked around the table at the assembled directors and managers. "I have an announcement to make." Effective immediately, Marcus Chen is relieved of his duties as CEO. He will be vacating the premises today. The room went absolutely silent. Marcus shot to his feet, his face dark with fury. "You can't do this. I'm a shareholder." "Who gave you those shares, Marcus?" I kept my voice calm, pleasant even. "Who funded your position on this board? Who built this company while you played at being a businessman?" His mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "Those shares are mine," I continued. "They were always mine. You were merely managing them. And now I'm taking them back." I pulled a document from my bag and placed it on the table. "The transfer has already been processed. It's complete. You own nothing." Sophia rose from her seat, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Ms. Zhong, please. This is my fault. I'll leave right now. I'll disappear from this city, from both your lives. Just don't punish Marcus for my mistakes." I stared at her for a long moment, genuinely impressed by the performance. "Sophia, you're fired too." "What?" Her mask slipped for just a second. "You're fired," I repeated. "You were hired through nepotism, you have no qualifications for this position, and you've contributed nothing since you started. HR will process your termination immediately." A director near the end of the table cleared his throat nervously. "Ms. Zhong, perhaps we should discuss this privately. Is there anyone here who objects to my decisions?" I scanned the room, making eye contact with each person at the table. "Anyone who thinks Marcus Chen deserves to remain in a position he obtained and maintained solely through his relationship with me?" Silence. I nodded, satisfied. "Good. Victor," I addressed the deputy general manager, "you'll be taking over Marcus's responsibilities effective immediately. Please ensure he and Ms. Leahy are escorted from the building within the hour." Victor stood, his expression professionally neutral. "Of course, Ms. Zhong." I turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Oh, and Marcus? I'll expect your resignation letter on my desk by noon. Make it professional." I walked out without looking back. The elevator ride down was satisfyingly smooth. I'd barely reached the lobby when I heard running footsteps behind me. Marcus burst through the stairwell door, Sophia trailing behind him, her face tear-streaked and tragic. "Natalie!" Marcus grabbed my arm, spinning me around. "What the hell was that? You can't just..." I pulled my arm free. "I can, and I did. Is there a problem with your comprehension, Marcus? Or was what I said in the conference room not clear enough?" Sophia stepped forward, her voice breaking. I'm sorry, Sister Natalie. It's all my fault. I ruined your relationship. I'll leave right now. Oh, for heaven's sake. I cut her off impatiently. Stop with the act. You're not sorry. You've been planning this since you came back. Her eyes widened. That's not true. Sophia. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. I know about the driver. The color drained from her face so fast I thought she might faint. I don't know what you're talking about. The hit and run, I said calmly. The one that accidentally hit me outside this building yesterday. I know you hired him. Marcus looked between us, confusion written across his face. What? Sophia, what is she talking about? Sophia recovered quickly, shaking her head with convincing bewilderment. I have no idea. Natalie, you're upset, I understand, but this is crazy. Why would I hire someone to hurt you? I studied her face, watching the performance unfold. If I hadn't heard the conversation in the hospital stairwell, I might have believed her. She was that good. You're right, I said slowly. I'm probably just being paranoid. It's been a stressful few days. Relief flickered in Sophia's eyes, so quickly anyone else would have missed it. I should get back inside, I continued. Marcus, your resignation letter. Don't forget. I walked away, feeling their eyes on my back. When I reached my car, I pulled out my phone and called the number I'd saved the previous day. Detective Wu? It's Natalie Zhang. I have more information about that hit and run. 3 hours later, I sat in my apartment, waiting. I'd told Marcus where I'd be when he called, asking if we could talk one last time. I'd agreed, pretending to soften. And then I'd called the police. The knock came at 7:30. I checked the peephole, Marcus alone, his face haggard, dark circles under his eyes. No Sophia. I opened the door. Natalie. He stepped inside, looking around the apartment with an expression I couldn't read. Thank you for agreeing to see me. Say what you came to say. He took a deep breath. I was wrong. About everything. Sophia, the secret account, all of it. I was an idiot who didn't appreciate what I had until it was gone. He reached for my hand and I let him take it, forcing myself not to pull away. I love you, Natalie. I've always loved you. Give me another chance. Please. I looked at him, this man I'd given 5 years to, this man who had chosen another woman at every opportunity, this man who had watched me get hit by a car and run to check on his first love instead. Why now? I asked softly. Because you lost your job? Because Sophia showed her true colors? No, because... The knock on the door cut him off. I pulled my hand free and walked to the door, opening it to reveal Detective Wu and 2 uniformed officers. Ms. Zhang. Detective Wu nodded politely. We're here about your report. Marcus's face went pale. Natalie? What's going on? I stepped aside as the officers entered. Marcus, you should know Sophia hired that driver. She tried to have me killed. What? That's impossible. Detective Wu has the evidence. Recordings, financial transactions, witness statements. I met his eyes without flinching. She didn't do it for you, Marcus. She did it for money. She planned to marry you, then kill you and take everything. He staggered backward, hitting the wall. No. No, that's not true. Sophia loves me. She confessed an hour ago, Detective Wu said calmly. Once we presented the evidence, she broke down. She's been in custody since 4 o'clock. Marcus slid down the wall, landing in a heap on the floor. His face was gray, his eyes unfocused. She tried to kill you? She was going to kill me. I felt nothing watching him crumble. No pity, no satisfaction, no regret. Just a hollow emptiness where my love for him used to live. Detective Wu, I said quietly, thank you for coming. Of course, Ms. Zhang. We'll need you to come down to the station tomorrow to give a formal statement. I'll be there. The officers left. Marcus remained on the floor, his shoulders shaking. After a long moment, he looked up at me with tear-filled eyes. Natalie, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I never would have. Wouldn't you have? I interrupted. You spent 6 months lying to me, Marcus. You posted publicly about choosing between us. You slapped me when I confronted you about Sophia. You watched her try to have me killed and ran to check on her instead of me. I shook my head slowly. You didn't know she was a murderer. But you knew everything else. And you chose her anyway. I was confused. You were selfish. I walked to the door and held it open. It's time for you to go, Marcus. He struggled to his feet, his movements unsteady. At the door he paused, reaching for me one last time. Natalie, please. I have nothing left. No job, no money, no home. You're all I have. And whose fault is that? I met his eyes without flinching. Goodbye, Marcus. I closed the door behind him and locked it. Then I walked to my balcony, sat down in the evening air, and watched the lights of the city flicker to life one by one. Somewhere out there, Marcus Chen was learning what it felt like to have nothing. Somewhere in a police station, Sophia Lei was facing the consequences of her choices. And me? I was free. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend, the bride from yesterday's wedding. Are you okay? I've been worried sick. Call me when you can. I typed back, I'm better than okay. Dinner tomorrow? My treat. Her response came instantly, absolutely. I want to hear everything. I smiled, set down my phone, and watched the stars emerge overhead. For the first time in 5 years, I was exactly where I belonged, alone, at peace, and completely, utterly whole. The police station smelled like stale coffee and desperation. I sat in a hard plastic chair, watching through a one-way mirror as Detective Wu questioned Sophia. She looked different now. Her perfectly styled hair was messy, her makeup smudged, her designer clothes wrinkled from a night in holding. The mask of innocence had finally slipped, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. She's been talking for 3 hours, Detective Wu said, joining me at the window. Once we presented the evidence, she couldn't stop. I think she's been waiting to tell someone the truth for a long time. I watched Sophia gesture animatedly, her lips moving in what looked like a confession. What did she say? Everything. Detective Wu handed me a file. The driver was her cousin. She planned the hit-and-run to look like an accident. After that failed, she was going to try again. She also admitted that she never loved Marcus, he was just a means to an end. I opened the file, scanning the typed confession. Words jumped out at me: financial difficulties, inheritance, carefully planned, never loved him. I felt nothing but a distant sort of curiosity, like I was reading about strangers. Why did she come back? I asked. After all these years, why now? Detective Wu's expression tightened. She was in debt. Massive gambling debts from her time abroad. She'd heard about Marcus's position at your company, about his shares, about the life you'd built together. She saw him as her way out. I thought about Marcus's secret account, his agonizing over choosing between us, his conviction that Sophia's feelings were genuine. All that time he'd been nothing but a mark to her. A target. I want to talk to her. Detective Wu raised an eyebrow. Are you sure? You don't have to. I'm sure. The interrogation room was smaller than I expected, barely large enough for the table and 3 chairs. Sophia looked up as I entered, and for a moment her mask flickered back into place, wide eyes, trembling lips, the picture of wounded innocence. Then she saw my expression, and the mask fell away entirely. Natalie. Her voice was flat. Come to gloat. I sat down across from her. No. I came to understand. Understand what? That I tried to kill you. She laughed bitterly. Isn't it obvious? You had everything I wanted. The company, the money, the man who should have been mine. Should have been yours. I repeated. You left him, Sophia. You chose to go abroad. Because his family rejected me. The calm broke, anger flashing in her eyes. His mother looked at me like I was dirt. Like I wasn't good enough for her precious son. I had to leave, I had no choice. You had a choice. You chose yourself. And what's wrong with that? She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. You would have done the same. You did do the same. You built a company, made yourself rich, became someone no one could reject. She smiled, and it was ugly. The only difference is you succeeded. I failed. I studied her face, searching for any trace of the girl I'd known in college. The one who'd laughed with Marcus in the sunshine, who'd seemed so genuinely in love. That girl was gone, if she'd ever existed at all. Marcus loved you, I said quietly. Even after you left, he loved you. When you came back, he was ready to throw away everything we'd built together just for a chance with you again. Sophia's expression flickered. I know. And you were going to kill him. After we were married, yes. She said it so casually, like discussing the weather. The shares would have passed to me. I would have sold them, paid my debts, started over somewhere new. You're a monster. No. She shook her head slowly. I'm just someone who learned early that the world doesn't give you anything for free. You have to take what you want. She met my eyes. You understand that, Natalie. You're the same as me. I stood up, pushing back my chair. No. I'm not. Really? Sophia's voice followed me to the door. You built an empire while most people your age were figuring out their lives. You let Marcus believe he was your partner while keeping all the power for yourself. You're a shark, Natalie Jong. You just wear a nicer suit than I do. I paused at the door, looking back at her. There's a difference between being strong and being cruel. Between protecting yourself and destroying others. You'll have plenty of time in prison to figure out what that difference is. I walked out without waiting for her response. Detective Wu met me in the hallway. You okay? I'm fine. I handed back the file. When will she go to trial? 3 months, maybe 4. The evidence is solid. She'll be convicted. Good. I walked out of the police station into the afternoon sunlight, drawing a deep breath of fresh air. The weight that had settled on my shoulders months ago, when I'd first discovered Marcus's secret account, finally began to lift. My phone buzzed. Marcus. I'd unblocked him after Sophia's arrest, curious about what he might say. His messages had been coming steadily for days. Apologies, explanations, pleas for another chance. I'd read them all with detached interest, like watching a documentary about someone else's failed relationship. This one was different. I need to see you. One last time. Please. I typed back, tomorrow. 10 a.m. the park where we had our first date. The park hadn't changed in 5 years. Same winding paths, same old oak trees, same bench overlooking the small pond where ducks paddled lazily in the morning sun. I arrived early, wanting a few minutes to myself before facing Marcus. He appeared at exactly 10 o'clock, walking slowly down the path. He looked terrible, unshaven, hollow-eyed, his clothes wrinkled and mismatched. The confident man who'd caught the bouquet at his friend's wedding was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. Natalie. He sat beside me on the bench, keeping a careful distance. Thank you for coming. I nodded but didn't speak. I've been doing a lot of thinking, he continued, his voice rough. About us. About everything. And I realized you were right. About all of it. Which part? He winced. The secret account. The way I treated you. Sophia. He paused, swallowing hard. I was so blind. She came back and I just forgot everything we'd built together. Forgot that you saved me when my family lost everything. Forgot that you loved me when I had nothing. I watched a duck dive beneath the pond's surface, emerging moments later with something wriggling in its beak. Nature was brutal, even in this peaceful setting. I don't expect you to forgive me, Marcus continued. I don't deserve that. But I wanted you to know that I understand now. I see what I lost. He turned to face me, his eyes wet. I loved you, Natalie. I was just too stupid to realize it until it was too late. Loved. I caught the past tense. I'm not asking for another chance. I know better than that. He laughed bitterly. I just wanted you to know that you were right to leave. You deserved better than me. You deserve someone who chooses you first every time without hesitation. I studied his face for a long moment. The sincerity there surprised me. I'd expected more manipulation, more attempts to win me back. Maybe prison time for Sophia had finally opened his eyes. You're right, I said quietly. I did deserve better. And I'm glad you finally see that. He nodded, accepting the words like a verdict. What will you do now? I asked. I don't know. Find a job, I guess. Try to rebuild. He shrugged helplessly. I have nothing left. No money, no career, no prospects. Sophia's family is suing me for some reason I don't understand. My friends won't return my calls. He met my eyes. This is what I get, isn't it? For being an idiot. This is what you get for being cruel, I corrected gently. There's a difference. He absorbed that in silence. We sat together for a few more minutes, watching the ducks paddle across the pond. The morning sun warmed my skin and I felt a strange sense of peace settle over me, not forgiveness exactly, but something like acceptance. Natalie, Marcus said finally, can I ask you something? Go ahead. Did you ever really love me? Or was I just a project? I considered the question carefully. 5 years of memories flashed through my mind, the early days when he was grateful and kind, the middle years when we built something that felt real, the final months when everything crumbled. I loved you, I said honestly. Not the you from the end and not the you from Sophia's memories. But the you who showed up at my door desperate and broken, the you who looked at me like I'd saved your life. That man? I loved him. And now, I met his eyes. Now I don't feel anything at all. That's the truth. He nodded slowly, accepting it. I'm sorry, Natalie. For everything. I know. He stood, shoving his hands in his pockets. I guess this is goodbye. I guess so. He walked away without looking back. I watched him go, this man who'd occupied 5 years of my life, who'd broken my heart and then watched it heal without him. When he disappeared around a bend in the path, I turned back to the pond and let out a long, slow breath. The ducks paddled on, unconcerned with human drama. The sun continued its arc across the sky. Life, I realized, went on. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend. Dinner tonight? I'm bringing wine and gossip. I smiled and typed back, perfect. See you at 7. 6 months passed. The trial was brief and brutal. Sophia was convicted of conspiracy to commit murder and sentenced to 15 years in prison. Her confession, combined with the recordings I'd made and the driver's testimony, left no room for doubt. I watched the verdict from the gallery, feeling nothing but a quiet sense of closure. Marcus disappeared after that. I heard rumors that he'd left the city, that he was working odd jobs, that he'd been seen drinking in cheap bars. I didn't verify any of them. He'd become a stranger to me, and strangers' lives were none of my business. The company thrived under Victor's leadership. With Marcus gone and Sophia's toxic influence eliminated, productivity actually increased. I found myself returning to the office more often, rediscovering the joy of building something with my own hands. The business had been my first love before Marcus, and it welcomed me back without judgment. I started therapy too. Not because I was broken, but because I wanted to understand why I'd stayed so long, why I'd accepted so little for so many years. My therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Chen, helped me see patterns I'd missed, the way I'd learned to make myself small for love, the way I'd confused gratitude with affection, the way I'd built my identity around being needed. The interesting thing, Dr. Chen said during one session, is that you didn't fall apart when it ended. You rebuilt. That takes strength most people don't have. I didn't have a choice, I admitted. Either I rebuilt or I let them win. That's not weakness. That's survival. I thought about that often in the months that followed. Survival. Was that what I'd been doing all along? Surviving Marcus's neglect, Sophia's schemes, my own self-doubt? Maybe. But survival wasn't enough anymore. I wanted to thrive. So I did. I traveled, first for business, then for pleasure. I visited places I'd only ever seen in photos, the lavender fields of Provence, the temples of Kyoto, the markets of Marrakesh. I ate strange foods, learned a few words of new languages, collected memories that had nothing to do with anyone but myself. I reconnected with old friends and made new ones. I hosted dinner parties, joined a book club, even tried online dating for a few disastrous weeks. Most of the men were nice enough, but I wasn't ready. Maybe I'd never be ready. That was okay too. And slowly, imperceptibly, I stopped thinking about Marcus altogether. Until the day I saw him again. I was in Shanghai for a business meeting, walking through the old part of the city between appointments. The narrow streets were crowded with tourists and locals alike, the air thick with the smell of street food and exhaust fumes. And there, crouched against a wall with a cardboard cup in front of him, was Marcus Chen. I almost walked past without recognizing him. He'd aged 20 years and 6 months, gaunt, unshaven, his clothes ragged and dirty. His eyes were fixed on the ground, his body language radiating defeat. But something made me stop. A flicker of recognition, perhaps, or just morbid curiosity. I stood on the sidewalk, watching him, and after a moment he looked up. Our eyes met. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. Then Marcus scrambled to his feet, his face cycling through shock, shame, and something that looked almost like hope. Natalie. I should have walked away. Every instinct told me to keep moving, to pretend I hadn't seen him, to leave this ghost in my past exactly where he belonged. Instead, I found myself stepping closer. Marcus. My voice revealed nothing. What happened to you? He laughed bitterly, gesturing at his ragged appearance. What does it look like? This happened. I waited. He sagged against the wall, all pretense gone. After Sophia's trial, everything fell apart. My family wouldn't take me back. No one would hire me. The few friends I had left stopped answering my calls. I ran out of money, then ran out of options. He gestured vaguely at the street. Now I'm here. You came to Shanghai. I had nowhere else to go. He met my eyes and I saw something broken in them, something that might have been there all along, hidden beneath his confidence and charm. I thought maybe I could start over. But without money, without connections. He trailed off. We stood in silence for a long moment. Around us, the city hummed with life, people rushing past, vendors calling out their wares, children laughing. In the midst of all that movement, we were still. Why did you stop? Marcus asked quietly. When you saw me, why didn't you keep walking? I considered the question. I don't know. Curiosity, maybe. To see what became of you. And now that you've seen. I studied his face, the hollow cheeks, the haunted eyes, the lines of suffering etched around his mouth. 6 months ago, this man had everything. A job, a home, a woman who loved him. Now he had nothing. I'm not going to help you, I said. If that's what you're hoping. I'm not hoping for anything. He said it simply, without self-pity. I wanted to see you one more time. To apologize properly, without expecting anything in return. You already apologized. I know. But I don't think I really meant it then. Not the way I mean it now. He looked down at his hands, dirty and cracked. I was selfish my whole life, Natalie. I took and took and took, and when you finally stopped giving, I blamed you for it. That wasn't love. That was greed. I said nothing. Seeing you now, he continued, looking so whole. It's the best thing that could have happened. Proof that you survived me. That you're better off without me. He looked up and there were tears in his eyes. I'm glad, Natalie. I'm glad you're okay. Something shifted in my chest. Not love, that was long dead. Not pity exactly. Just recognition. That we'd once meant something to each other, and now we were strangers on a Shanghai street, divided by everything that had happened. Take care of yourself, Marcus. I reached into my bag and pulled out a handful of cash, maybe 200 yuan, not enough to change his life but enough for a few meals. I pressed it into his hand. This isn't forgiveness. It's just humanity. He stared at the money, then at me. Natalie. Goodbye, Marcus. I walked away before he could say anything else. The crowd swallowed me and I let it carry me forward away from the past, toward the future I'd built with my own 2 hands. I didn't look back. That night in my hotel room overlooking the Huangpu River, I thought about what Dr. Chen would say about today's encounter. Probably something about closure, about the importance of seeing ex-partners as human without letting that humanity draw you back in. Probably something about how healing isn't linear, how it's okay to feel complicated things. I felt complicated things sitting there in the darkness. Sadness for the man Marcus had become. Relief that I was no longer part of his story. Gratitude for my own resilience. And beneath it all, a quiet, steady peace. The past was the past. It couldn't hurt me anymore. My phone buzzed with a message from Victor. Meeting with the Shanghai partners went great. They're ready to sign. Congratulations, boss. I smiled and typed back, not boss. Partner. We're in this together. His response came instantly, partners. I like that. I set down the phone and watched the lights of Shanghai dance on the river's surface. Tomorrow I'd sign a deal that would expand my company into a new market. Next month I'd visit Tokyo, then Singapore, then maybe London. My life was full of possibility, and for the first time in years I was excited to explore it alone. No Marcus. No Sophia. No drama. Just me. And that was enough. 2 years later, I stood on a balcony in Barcelona, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. The city sprawled below me, beautiful and chaotic, full of life I was only beginning to understand. I'd been here 3 months now, overseeing the European expansion of my company. Victor had wanted to come instead, but I'd insisted. I needed a change of scenery, a new challenge, a reminder that the world was bigger than the life I'd left behind. It had worked. Barcelona embraced me like an old friend. I learned enough Spanish to navigate daily life, discovered the best tapas bars in the Gothic Quarter, developed a minor obsession with Gaudi's architecture. On weekends, I took trains to nearby cities, Madrid, Valencia, once all the way to Paris. I was building a new life, brick by brick, and it felt solid beneath my feet. Victor visited twice. Our partnership had deepened into something closer to friendship, though neither of us pushed for more. We worked well together, trusted each other completely, and that was enough. Maybe someday it would become something else. Maybe not. Either way, I was content. Then, on a random Tuesday, I received an email that changed everything. It was from a lawyer I didn't know, representing an estate I'd never heard of. My great-aunt, my mother's aunt actually, had passed away in a small town outside Seville, leaving me a property I hadn't known existed. A vineyard, apparently, with a small house and several acres of land. I read the email 3 times, certain it was a mistake. But the lawyer was insistent. I was the only living relative, the only heir. The vineyard was mine if I wanted it. I wanted it. 3 weeks later, I stood in the middle of that vineyard, trying to reconcile reality with imagination. The property was beautiful, rolling hills covered in grapevines, a stone farmhouse that looked straight out of a postcard, views of mountains in the distance. But it was also neglected, overgrown, desperately in need of care my great-aunt had been too old to provide. The lawyer, a kind man named Señor Garcia, walked beside me, explaining the situation in careful English. Your aunt inherited this from her parents, but she never married, never had children. She maintained it as best she could, but the last few years... He shrugged apologetically. Much work is needed. I nodded, already calculating. How much work? And how much would it cost? He named a figure that made my eyes widen. But of course you could sell. The land alone is worth considerably more than that. Sell. The practical choice. The smart choice. I looked at the vineyard, at the gnarled old vines, the weathered farmhouse, the mountains in the distance. Something stirred in my chest, something I hadn't felt in years. I want to think about it, I said. Is there somewhere I can stay nearby? Señor Garcia smiled. The farmhouse is habitable if rustic. I can have someone clean it for you. That won't be necessary. I'll manage. The farmhouse was indeed rustic. The kitchen hadn't been updated since the 1970s, the bathroom was tiny, and the bedroom windows looked out directly onto the vineyard in a way that felt both exposed and magical. I spent my first night wrapped in blankets against the chill, listening to wind rustle through the vines, and woke feeling more rested than I had in months. I stayed a week. During that week, I walked every inch of the property. I explored the wine cellar, dusty and abandoned but still full of bottles from years past. I met the neighbors, an elderly couple who'd known my great-aunt, who cried when they learned who I was. I sat on the farmhouse porch each evening, watching the sunset, and felt something I couldn't name settling into my bones. On the last day, I called Victor. "I'm not coming back," I said without preamble. Silence on the other end. Then, "What do you mean you're not coming back?" "I mean I'm staying here. In Spain. I'm going to restore the vineyard." "Boss, Natalie, you don't know anything about vineyards." "I'll learn." Another pause. "Are you serious about this?" I looked out at the hills, the vines, the mountains. I've never been more serious about anything. Victor was quiet for a long moment. Then I guess I'm running the company solo from now on." "I guess you are. And if I need advice? Help with decisions? You call me." "I'm not disappearing, Victor. I'm just expanding." He laughed, a genuine warm sound. "You're crazy. You know that, right?" "Probably. But I'm also happy." "Happiness is underrated. Do it. I'll hold down the fort." I hung up feeling lighter than I had in years. The restoration took 18 months and most of my savings. I hired a local team, men and women who'd worked the land their whole lives, who knew things about grapes and soil and weather that I could only dream of learning. They were skeptical at first, this Chinese woman who'd appeared out of nowhere with money and questions and no practical knowledge whatsoever. But I worked beside them every day, learning their language, both Spanish and the local dialect, earning their respect one small victory at a time. We cleared the overgrowth, pruned the old vines, planted new ones. We repaired the farmhouse, updated the kitchen, added bathrooms and heating and all the modern conveniences my great-aunt had done without. We cleaned out the wine cellar, catalogued the old bottles, dreamed about what new ones might taste like. And slowly, impossibly, the vineyard came back to life. The first harvest was small, the wine rough and unrefined. But it was ours, mine and the team's, born of hard work and stubborn hope. We celebrated in the farmhouse that night, drinking that imperfect wine, laughing at nothing, and I felt more at home than I had in years. The second harvest was better. The third better still. Word spread. A Chinese woman running a vineyard in rural Spain. It was the kind of story journalists loved. I gave interviews reluctantly at first, then more willingly as I realized they brought customers. Soon we had a steady stream of visitors, people curious about the wine and the woman who made it. I hired more staff, expanded production, started exporting to Barcelona and Madrid. Victor helped with distribution, adding my wine to the luxury gifts his company offered clients. My wine in boxes with my name on them, sent to people I'd never meet. It was surreal. It was wonderful. It was mine. On a cool evening in October, 2 years after I'd first seen the vineyard, I sat on my porch with a glass of our latest vintage and watched the sun set over the hills. The sky was spectacular, layers of pink and purple and gold, painting the world in colors that felt almost supernatural. My phone buzzed with a message from Victor. Shipment arrived today. Clients love it. You're officially a success. I smiled and typed back, we're officially a success. Couldn't have done it without you. His response came quickly, you could have. You just didn't want to. Maybe he was right. Maybe I could have done this alone. But I was glad I didn't have to. Another message, when are you coming home? I looked at the vineyard, the farmhouse, the mountains. This was home now. This patch of Spanish earth, these people who'd become my family, this life I'd built from nothing. I am home, I typed back. The sun dipped below the horizon and the stars began to emerge one by one until the sky was thick with them. I sat in the darkness, wrapped in a blanket, and thought about how far I'd come. From a woman who'd let herself be diminished for love, to a woman who'd built an empire alone. From someone who'd measured her worth by a man's attention, to someone who needed no one's approval but her own. From broken to whole through nothing but sheer, stubborn determination. The past was gone. Marcus was gone. Sophia was in prison. The company thrived without me. And here, in this beautiful corner of the world, I'd found something I hadn't known I was looking for. Myself. I raised my glass to the stars. To new beginnings, I whispered. And the stars, indifferent and eternal, shone down on me like a blessing. 5 years. Half a decade since I'd walked out of that wedding, leaving Marcus and Sophia to their drama. Half a decade since I'd rebuilt my life from the ground up. Half a decade of growth and change and becoming someone I actually liked. The vineyard was thriving now. Our wines had won awards, been featured in magazines, attracted the attention of collectors around the world. I'd expanded to include a small hotel, renovating several outbuildings into luxury accommodations for guests who wanted the full experience. We hosted weddings now and corporate retreats, and once a film crew that spent 3 weeks shooting scenes among the vines. Life was good. But life, I'd learned, had a way of circling back. It happened on a Tuesday in spring. I was in the farmhouse office reviewing accounts when my phone rang with an unfamiliar Spanish number. Natalie Jong. Yes. This is Inspector Morales from the Barcelona police. I'm calling about Marcus Chen. The name hit me like a physical blow. 5 years since I'd heard it spoken aloud. 5 years since I'd pushed it from my mind. What about him? He's been in an accident. A hit and run, actually. The inspector's voice was careful, professional. He's in the hospital. Critical condition. He's been asking for you. I gripped the phone tighter. Why would he ask for me? We haven't spoken in years. His phone contained only one contact, your name and number. The doctors found it when they went through his effects. He's been unconscious for 3 days, but when he wakes, he asks for you. A pause. Ms. Zhang, I understand if this is complicated. But he has no one else. No family, no friends. Just your number. I stared out the window at the vineyard, bathed in spring sunshine. Somewhere in Barcelona, a man I'd once loved was dying alone. I'll be there tomorrow. The hospital was white and sterile, smelling of antiseptic and despair. I walked through corridors lined with sick people, following signs to the ICU, my heart beating steadily in my chest. I felt nothing. That was the strange thing. 5 years of healing had left me whole but also distant. Marcus was a ghost from another life, and ghosts couldn't hurt you anymore. The ICU was quiet, filled with the beep and hum of machines. A nurse led me to a curtained cubicle, pulled back the fabric, and there he was. I barely recognized him. Marcus had aged terribly. His face was gaunt, his skin gray, his body covered in bandages and tubes. The man who'd caught that bouquet at his friend's wedding, who'd stood so confidently in front of a crowd and declared his actions innocent, that man was gone, replaced by this broken figure on a hospital bed. His eyes were closed, his breathing shallow. I pulled up a chair and sat beside him, waiting. An hour passed. Then 2. Nurses came and went, checking machines, adjusting medications. I watched it all with detached interest, like a visitor in a museum. Finally, toward evening, his eyes flickered open. They found me immediately, as if he'd known I was there. For a long moment, we just looked at each other, two people connected by a past that felt like someone else's story. Natalie. His voice was a whisper, rough from disuse. You came. You asked for me. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. I didn't think you would. I said nothing. He closed his eyes for a moment, gathering strength. When he opened them again, they were clearer. I'm dying. The doctors told me. Internal injuries. Not much time. I'm sorry. Are you? The question wasn't accusatory, just curious. I considered it honestly. I'm sorry you're in pain. I'm sorry your life turned out this way. But I can't pretend to feel something I don't. He nodded slowly. I understand. After everything I did. Marcus. I leaned forward. I forgave you a long time ago. Not for your sake, for mine. Carrying anger would have weighed me down and I needed to fly. Tears formed in his eyes. I'm glad. I'm so glad you're okay. I'm more than okay. I'm happy. Tell me. His voice was growing weaker. Tell me about your life. So I did. I told him about the vineyard, the wine, the hotel. About Victor and the team and the friends I'd made. About Barcelona's sunsets and mountain views and the peace I'd found in a place I'd never expected to call home. He listened with his eyes closed, a small smile on his lips. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. I'm glad, he whispered finally. Glad you found that. Glad you didn't let me destroy you. You didn't destroy me. You just showed me what I didn't want. His eyes opened, meeting mine one last time. Natalie. I loved you. I was just too broken to love you right. I know. Can you forgive me? Really forgive me. I reached out and took his hand, the first time I touched him in 5 years. His fingers were cold, fragile, nothing like the hand that had held mine through so many years. I forgive you, Marcus. For everything. A single tear escaped his eye, tracing a path down his cheek. Thank you. Then his eyes closed and he was gone. I sat with him for a while after the machine stopped beeping, after the nurses came and went with their quiet efficiency. The body on the bed was just a shell now, empty of the man who'd once occupied it. I felt no grief, no relief, nothing but a strange, quiet peace. When I finally stood to leave, I noticed something on the bedside table. A small notebook, worn and battered, with my name written on the cover. I picked it up, opened it, and began to read. It was a journal spanning the years since we'd parted. Marcus had written about everything, his fall from grace, his time on the streets, his desperate move to Shanghai. The entries were raw, honest, full of pain and regret. And woven through them all was me. Dreamed about Natalie last night. She was laughing the way she used to before I broke her. Woke up crying. Saw a woman who looked like her today. Followed her for 3 blocks before realizing my mistake. What would I even say if it was her? I don't deserve her forgiveness. I don't deserve anything. But I hope she's happy. I hope she's forgotten me. The last entry was dated 3 days ago, the day of the accident. I'm going to Barcelona. I don't know why, maybe just to be close to her, even if she never knows. Maybe to see the vineyard she built, the life she made without me. Maybe to finally let go. If something happens to me, I hope someone finds this. I hope she knows that in the end, all I wanted was for her to be okay. She was the best thing that ever happened to me, and I threw her away like she meant nothing. She meant everything. I was just too stupid to see it. I love you, Natalie. I always have. I always will. I closed the notebook and slipped it into my bag. Outside the hospital, Barcelona hummed with evening life, people rushing home, couples dining at sidewalk cafes, children laughing in a nearby park. I walked through it all like a ghost, feeling the weight of what I'd just witnessed settling into my bones. Marcus Chen was dead. The man I'd loved, hated, forgiven, and released was gone forever. And I was still here. Still alive. Still building my life, one day at a time. I found a cafe, ordered coffee, and sat watching the city flow past. My phone buzzed with a message from Victor. "How are you holding up?" I typed back, "I'm okay." "He's gone. Are you coming home?" I looked at the notebook in my bag, at the city around me, at the life I'd built in this beautiful country. "I am home," I typed. "But I'll be back at the vineyard tomorrow. Work waits for no one." His response came with a winking emoji. "That's my boss." I smiled, pocketed the phone, and finished my coffee. 3 months later, I stood in the vineyard at sunset, a glass of our newest vintage in my hand. The grapes were thriving, the hotel was fully booked, and life was exactly as it should be. I'd thought about Marcus often in those months. Not with grief exactly, but with a kind of gentle remembrance. He'd been part of my story, for better and worse. Denying that would be denying the person I'd become. The person I'd become. That was the important part. 5 years ago, I'd walked out of a wedding with nothing but my dignity and the determination to rebuild. Today, I had a thriving business, a community that loved me, and a peace I'd never thought possible. I raised my glass to the setting sun. "To new beginnings," I whispered. "And to letting go." The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple. Somewhere in the distance, I heard laughter from the hotel, guests enjoying their evening, making memories in this place I'd built. I smiled, took a sip of wine, and let the past fade into darkness. The future was bright, and it was mine. All mine. The end.